Thanks a lot for coming. I understand that actually the slot at 2 p.m. is quite a tough one because you kind of had some lunch and it's already been 1.5 days of this conference, so you've heard a lot. And I have to work very hard to stand out of this, so you can at the end still remember what I've said. I will try to fulfill that kind of requirement or that promise, but well, as far as promises go. Interestingly, actually the title is not totally correct, because when I submitted this, I was speaking about future technologies. Guess what? Future is today. So the future catch up with us. So this is no longer, well, one of them is still a future technology, the other one is actually a pretty present one. Just released fresh out of the oven, and you will see what I mean. So I can skip that slide because we already have that introduction. Maybe for you to know a little bit about the background, I'm also working with the IETF, the Internet Engineering Task Force, and a lot of the stuff I'm talking about is basically coming from that channel. Well, defending against man in the middle. Probably I'm in a very fortunate spot that here at OWASP I don't have to explain too much about man in the middle attacks in general, I think. So this will be much easier. I will start with a little bit talking about past attacks and breaches that we've seen in last year, because they basically led up to a number of the developments we have been making over the last 18 months. Then talking about the general kind of insufficiencies that we see with channel protection, and then basically leading to the 2 possible solutions that we will implement very, very soon. So, past breaches. Probably you all read in 2011 we had quite some interesting news about CAs and their breaches. Actually, I believe just 1 hour ago there was a presentation about from a guy from Komodo, PHP, from this Iran war case. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to go to this one, so I went to another. But I'm definitely going to see the video because it might actually have conflicting input to what I'm saying. Still, I think the main message should be: yes, we had a breach, and there were a number of certificates signed in a fake way for 7 domains at that time. That was actually in March 2011, so last year in spring. That was kind of a minor news coming out at that time. And as you all know, as we also during that presentation before, 1 hour before, Komodo is still around. So nothing bad had happened to them so far. Well, but there's another party kind of in all types of senses, literally, which happened then in 2011 in June. Actually, the date is not totally clear, but it was discovered on June 19th. There was another breach to a CA. Maybe I should actually ask the room, who of you knows what a certificate of authority is, what a CA is? Great. Okay, that makes it easy, so I don't have to explain what a CA is. And in that case, it was DG Notar. So, and in that case, it was really kind of getting really bad. So a hacker managed to issue a number of wildcard certs for Google and a number of other kind of companies. And the Tor project in the end kind of found, they did extensive updates on this, and in the end they found 531 fraudulent certificates were issued by the attacker. So you can imagine a number of sites were basically exposed by that. And in August 28, there were some certificate problems being noticed by multiple internet service providers in Iran. So what happened at that time was actually that there were some servers in the middle, some ISP servers, who kind of injected and used these fake certificates to then reopen the channel to the main server, and the users would connect via these fake certificates and basically expose all their private data, all their user credentials, passwords, and all their emails and all this stuff. So if you, for example, using Gmail and you were sitting in Iran at that time, basically your email was being read by the government or whoever was sitting behind these ISP servers. Which was, if you remember at that time, not a healthy position to be in. because there was this kind of certain unrest or kind of unhappiness of people. So if you at that time were writing your emails maybe to your friend, hey, the government sucks, you might actually have received a visit of someone to convince you otherwise by whatever means necessary. So actually this is not only about money, this is not only about your privacy, this could be quite serious for people. Fortunately, in this case, actually the browser vendors took quite drastic measures and quite justified. And on August 30, I think it was basically all of them, but Mozilla, I felt Mozilla was the first, but well, I might not be perfectly right. On August 30, Mozilla removed DigiNotar certificates from their list of trusted CAs. And well, that was basically the end of DigiNotar certificates. Because if you're no longer listed as a trusted source in a browser, then, well, what's the whole point of operating? Because the only point for you selling these certificates is that people trust you. And if people don't trust you anymore, well, that's it. And, well, just 1 month later, actually only 21 days later, DigiNotar filed for bankruptcy. So, yeah, quite a steep rise and decline for them. There's an interesting remark to this. So in this case, actually, many browser users were exposed, but interestingly, Chrome users were not, at least not for the Google accounts. So they were exposed for the remaining 500 odd something certificates, but not for accessing Google. So it was kind of an interesting artifact. And that was because actually Google did something. They were able to detect fraudulent certificates accessing Google servers. I mean, they kind of did this for their own domain by pinning, by basically listing a number of Google certificates that they trust. And if it's anything else, then they knew it's not from themselves. So in a little bit learning from this, we will come to the solutions that are actually now building up to provide this for everybody. Chrome detected it. Chrome basically had a list. I mean, actually Google didn't really speak about it, but Chrome had a list internally of certificates that would be allocated to Google. And well, then there was suddenly one more kind of, and the Chrome browser kind of noticed, oh, this is not in my list. This is kind of strange. Okay. So in a number of cases, what you see for man-in-the-middle attacks when it comes to transport layer security attacks is obviously you have a guy in the middle. So, and in these cases, you have a secure connection from the client to the server using some fake certificate. So the client actually believes everything's fine. They still see this little lock icon. They still see kind of, oh, this is all right in the browser. There's a little image in the address bar. So for them, everything looks fine. On the other hand, the server also has an encrypted channel and also believes, oh, everything's fine because actually somebody's talking to me in encrypted communication. So both sides are quite happy, and the man in the middle using that fake certificate is very happy too, because he can read everything you send to him and then just pass it on. That happens if you have access to these fake certificates by one of these CAs. Well, now there's kind of a bad thing with these CA certificates and with this trust model. And the problem is that basically if one of these, you have a very large number of trusted CAs listed in your browsers, a very large number. And you know they can actually sign certificates for any domain. So it's not like CAA could only search for example, Google. But everyone can make certificates for Google or for your company. So thinking about, you have hundreds of CAs in about 46 jurisdictions or countries. And now imagine you need to breach only one. Only one single CA you need either to breach as an attacker or as a government. Because if the government goes to these kind of companies in their country and says, well, you really have to do this for me, they really have to do this for them. So that means they can actually also influence on getting these certificates. Think about Secret Service or something like that. So if a single one of them is broken, basically all your TLS, SSL domains are prone to this attack. So only one of them needs a breach, and basically we are all thinking about what can we do with this model. Yeah, here's some more statistics. So from the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, they have an SSL observatory, and they listed about 1,400 certificates are trustable, which is from about 1,000 CA certificates, which is from about 1,100 distinct issuers from about 650 organizations. So imagine 1 out of 650 a breach. And I think the probability for something like that happening, we can make our estimated guess what that could be. And we saw that in 2011 with 2 instances that people noticed. I mean, I'm not talking about the stuff we haven't seen. So, yeah, insufficient transport layer protection. I think that's probably known to most of us because it's number 9 on our OWASP top 10 list. So it's not very high on the list, but still it's high enough to be in it. And it's actually quite omnipresent. I mean, every website you go and where you kind of enter your data, if you enter your username, if you enter your password, this is common. If you have your session cookie somewhere, if you make a bank transaction, you buy a book, you read something somewhere, you enter data in a blog, you go to Facebook, so you name it. In all these cases, you rely on the fact that nobody in the middle is either reading your credentials or actually injecting content on your behalf that you may not like. So what's in common case the problem? Some of them are not using or not mandating TLS or SSL. It relies on this kind of trust relationship. So you basically hope that this certificate will be true and that you trust these CAs in the browser. In a number of cases, you actually have threats of leakage because, yes, you should use SSL in every case, but I guess you know that in a number of deployments, you have actually both for websites. So you have SSL access and you have non-SSL access. Funnily enough, your browser for example, submits your cookies to both if they are not set to set cookie state secure. But well, we know that not everybody does play nicely. So quite a number of deployments still have not this cookie, and then that means your session is in the clear and can be grabbed by anybody sitting there. Or there are also a number of applications out there who just don't use SSL. So I'm not sure, for example, who of you uses WhatsApp? I think that's a fairly common. Okay, not so many. No, nobody knows who knows what WhatsApp is? Okay, I'm not in Asia anymore. If I ask that question in Hong Kong, everybody in the room raises their hand. It's kind of a little chat application instead of SMS. It's basically a free SMS over the internet. But interestingly, it doesn't use SSL encryption. So if you sit in the same, is it now? Since 1 month, then, because 2 months ago they didn't. Okay, so then I stand corrected. I really have to run a proxy to check that. Okay, thank you very much. What you see is you basically have 2 normal attack paths. The first one is, of course, on the outside when you go to the application server, and the second one is then potentially internal people. Yeah, the comment was that a lot of people start their journey on HTTP by just entering this into the browser. And well, then they come to the login page, enter something or enter the data, and they submit an HTTP, or a man in the middle just removes the SSL in the future. Yeah, very, very well. I come to this in a minute. Actually, this one. So You have prescience. You can see the future divination. Very good. Or you were in one of my other presentations. Who knows? Actually, Facebook fixed this. So I think last year you could still do go to the web page and wouldn't have a redirect. Now they do a redirect to HTTPS before you do the login. But does your web application do this in all cases? I still see quite a number of them out there where I don't get a mandatory redirect to SSL before I submit my credentials. So again, this is fixed. So in this case, they are fine, but there are quite a number of them out there. Yeah, it's nice, you do the post and everything is fine, but actually the channel over which you are posting is open. So yeah, nice try. There are 3 common attack vectors for weak channels. There's SSL downgrading, SSL stripping, and the use of fake certs. So fake certs is basically the case where you have a breach to a CA that I started with my presentation. So if you manage to get into one of these 650 entities, then you get your fake cert. And you can sign this for Google, for Microsoft, for HSBC, name the interested party you kind of want to listen in. The second one is SSL downgrading, which is a little bit kind of an artifact from the past where some of the browsers were not able to do the full SSL encryption with the very strong algorithms. And to support compatibility, we kind of acknowledged that and allowed in a number of cases, well, we should be allowing even weaker algorithms. A weaker one is better than none. So the server could reply and say, well, actually I don't support 256, so let's only talk 50 something or 48. And then, yeah, basically you would have a very weak encryption only, and that could be reached within minutes. The problem with this is if either side both sides of them would theoretically allow this, but both would be willing to do the maximum strength. If you have a person in the middle, he can basically start talking to the left side and say, oh, I don't speak this strong stuff. I only speak the soft stuff. Then he comes back, and then he hands this back to the server and says, oh, I also don't speak the strong stuff. So with one person in the middle, if both sides are willing to go down, then they will go down. Fortunately, in most cases, at least in the modern browsers, we are away from this SSL downgrading. But also, as you know, there are still plenty of lower version browsers out there who are quite willing and accommodating on downgrading your SSL encryption. And again, with this, you basically have full access then to the channel. So if you're sitting in an internet cafe, in a hotel, at a conference, and there's somebody sitting in between, yeah. And the third one is SSL stripping. There's a very kind of smart guy, Moxie Marlinspike, probably you all heard of him. I like his tools. I'm not always of the same opinion with him. But this one is really cool because basically the client will go there and the client will see, okay, this is a non-encrypted server, and there's kind of no hints for that you really have to encrypt it. While the server kind of has a normal happy SSL encrypted line. And this basically will strip out everything that's it will strip out SSL redirects, it will strip out server cookies and all these kind of things. Quite sophisticated actually, meanwhile. So it will strip out the secure attribute of all cookies, encodings in the request, if modified sins, redirects. For the client, if you don't start with SSL, you will never end up in SSL. And for the server, you will always kind of think everything's fine. Quite a nice device. So you have basically 3 methods on getting to this, on getting into the data. There are a number of kind of mechanisms that we as OWASP recommend. First of all is use TLS on all connections with sensitive data. use standard strong algorithms, as I said, to avoid this downgrading and really make it mandatory. Manage your keys, verify the certificates before using them. In a number of cases, people don't verify or don't look for revocation. And use proven mechanisms if possible. And there's, again, this little nice cheat sheet that we have, just as a kind of reminder. I'm sorry, probably all of you have heard and read it, but I really like our cheat sheets areas. So how to deal with this? Maybe first kind of to introduce some of the players. Of course, OWASP was one of the players. We had a browser security day at the OWASP summit in 2011. And at that time, we kind of discussed about these problems and how to solve it. The ITF with the Web Security Working Group, they talk about kind of internet standards and really how to deploy this. Browser vendors and a number of secure websites with critical information like, well, PayPal, banks, eBay, and the likes. And of course, also some great security researchers like Chris in the back. So what's been done and what's coming? We have worked on HSTS, actually it's HTTP Strict Transport Security. The short acronym is HSTS, so sorry for that. Cert pinning, and another working group is working on TLS cert pinning and DNSSEC. So first of all, the easiest one, and that's already there, now, today. That's basically the future that that just catch up with us. This is just a normal HTTP header, very simple. And the only thing this header says is, I will always talk SSL. If anyone talks to you from my domain in plain language, it's not me. So the consequence of this is, if a browser kind of goes to a site and notices, oh, this request is not SSL, first he will turn to SSL, and second, if this doesn't work, it will fail. So it will automatically convert all HTTP requests into HTTPS requests, which mitigates kind of a lot of these man-in-the-middle downgrading scenarios and these cases.
But if you say it in HTTP?
No. Yeah, there's two, yes and no. First, it will say it normally in an encrypted channel. So you have to start first with an SSL encrypted channel. Then you get this information. So this leads actually to the trust on first use scenario and the bootstrapping problem. So how do you kind of tell a person who has never been to the internet before, who has never been to your site, how can this person rely on that this is kind of still true? That's, I guess, what you mean. And yeah, that's still a problem because you still have this. A number of people have the hope that you will start your computer in a kind of semi-trusted environment at the beginning, which is, I know, which is kind of far-fetching. And the second bit is that actually some of the browsers will come with a preloaded HSTS cache. So you will already have for some major sites this in it, but not for all of them. The good thing about this is it's really simple. So setting this header is, yeah, I think this is the easiest thing to do. You basically have a max age, which means how long will this header persist. This should be in the range of days or months. So we're not talking about seconds. So for example, if you take your computer, go to a different location, this stuff is still in your cache, and if you encounter a man in the middle there, you will notice. It can include subdomains or not. That's an option. That's kind of for you to choose.
When you say we'll notice,
Well,
like, hey, we're doing something different, click OK to continue?
Well, you
no,
cannot do
no. There's no OK. There's no OK. With these tools, there's no click by dummy user. Yes, I want to be hacked. No. This is kind of in these cases. The nice thing is that the server tells the client, yes, we are sure. This is what we want, and it kind of gives the browser confidence in not letting you click through. Actually, this will also give you trouble if you start with something like self-signed certs. So if you can't use a self-signed cert and then just click through, if you use that header. And the very nice thing, actually there are already first deployments, including PayPal, for example. The second bit, which is derived from work from Google and from Chris. Actually, it's Chris' work. I'm just presenting that. And the working group's work. So how could Google Chrome be so resilient? The fact was they basically had this preloaded fingerprint already in their browsers. And the interesting bit is server identities tend to be long-lived. But you know, when you go there, you basically always start your session very new, and you keep your session maybe for a couple of minutes, then you go out, and then you start a new session, and you would have to verify again that this fingerprint is there. But due to which you're pinning. Yes, it creates a bootstrapping problem and a chicken egg problem. You know, these things help you, but they are not kind of the silver bullet. Again, here, actually, you have more than a chicken egg problem. You also have a risk of recently seen one, so that's the update mechanism. So you talk SSL and you get a new SERP pinning header, then you update your entry. Quite simple. If this first instance is an attack, so for example, if you would start surfing in Iran, maybe you start being pinned to the wrong certs. You might notice this when you leave Iran to surf in the US, and suddenly kind of you see different certs. There is some way around this by preloading browsers for, let's say, more common, very kind of common sites. And yeah, attackers with ISP capabilities, as I said, for example, in Iran, may actually try to The nice thing of DNSSEC is basically we have signed entries in DNS which are integrity protected. And so you can go actually, you always go to your DNS server for getting your domain resolution to the IP address. And in this case, you could also get certificates linked to the domain. Unfortunately, rolling out and deploying DNSSEC is quite a feat, and it takes for ages. It takes a very long time. So the great thing of DNSSEC is you don't have this bootstrapping problem, because you go to the DNS server and there you already have this chain of trust. So all this trust on first use is much easier for you. The disadvantage is it will take probably another few years to be there. Yes, please.
You don't have the bootstrapping problem because the OS has the address or
Yeah, because
of this trusted DNS?
Yeah, because the OS has the link to the trusted DNS, and the DNS is signed, and you have the root servers, so you already have a chain of trust there. I mean, that could also theoretically be breached, but this is this is really difficult to breach, in my view. Yeah.
The root servers were hacked.
Yeah, I will not go into this. There's also another method. That's something Moxie presented about a year ago. I just want to mention this. I don't think this is going to happen, but it's a nice idea, where you basically, you don't actually ask CA for trust, but you actually ask other people whether they see the same cert coming from this site. And if you add a lot of friends, you basically, it's like going to all your friends and asking, hey, do you see the same? And then hoping that the man in the middle is not sitting between you and between the target and all your friends, which is, in a number of cases, a fair assumption. However, it's nice because you don't have the centralized trust situation anymore, and you could equally work with self-signed certificates in these cases. But the trust structure of the large vendors and of how large internet operators work is not exactly how this model would look like. And also it's difficult for a normal user, at least in my humble opinion, to decide on which friends do you want to trust. I mean, who are the ones you would ask? Yes, probably guys like us in the room who have the geek head. So what do we have to do? What do we have now? What do we have today? And the nice thing is this HSTS header you have today. So it just passed internet review, and it is now basically in the final editing stage where people just iron out the grammatical errors that you might still have in the text. So this is stable. You can go to this draft and use it, and I strongly recommend that you do. And a number of browsers already support it. So specifically Mozilla and Chrome. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, okay, he doesn't correct me. Good. Cert pinning, I still hope that we're going to have this in Q1 2013. Our initial plan was something for Q3, Q4 of this year, but, well, the internet is not as fast as it should be sometimes, especially when it comes to long-standing solutions. And the ITF very much believes in better do something right than do it too fast. And, well, that's kind of the price we have to pay for this. And TLS in DNSSEC, well, you know, kind of this variable where we don't really know when this is going to happen. But if this is going to happen, it will be a very nice addition. So my recommendation would be for you to start using this HSTS header as soon as you can, because it will mitigate a lot of these downgrading SSL's man-in-the-middle risks very, very easily. It scales tremendously because it's just an HTTP header. So I mean, this is the easiest, simplest solution you can ever choose. Yeah, this is kind of if you have ideas, feedback, or actually if you want to participate in the cert pinning discussion, that's still a little bit ongoing. We still have to solve one or two questions. Then please feel free to join the ITF website working group, or just drop me an email and I will kind of point you towards where to go. Okay, the question just for the audience on the video is whether you would whether you would use the trusted pre-loaded domains as kind of notaries for bootstrapping the other domains. Is that kind of disseminating that information? Might be nice. I'm not sure whether these preloaded domains would agree to being kind of or abused for disseminating the information for more others, and then you would need a registration model for that. Because they are not talking to the individual people, they are talking to these 650 CAs. And that's quite a lot easier than talking to 1 million. Other questions? Okay, I'm ahead of time. Thank you very much for your time and for coming. I hope I could keep you awake. Okay, see you.